Okay, this is going to be the second part of function notation. Just a little bit of a recap. Remember that when you read this type of stuff right here, this doesn't say f parentheses x, it actually says f of x. So that's the first thing I want you to remember from the last time we took notes. The other thing I want you to remember is that when you are inputting something into this function, the thing that's replacing that number there becomes your x. So if there's a 4 there, that means your x is 4. And anywhere you see an x, like right here, you would replace that with the number 4. Okay. So just a little bit of a recap of what we did before. Let's go ahead and scroll down. Here it says the function f of x represents the number of followers someone has on TikTok that are x years old, and they give you a table. Just remember that these are your input values. Usually those would be your x's, and these are your output values, which again can be represented by your y's. So we have a bunch of information there. We're just going to scroll on through, and it says for A through C, use the table to evaluate the function at each value. For D through F, calculate the value of x that makes each equation true. Explain what each means in terms of the problem. So I will go ahead and do a few of them, but I'm not going to do all of them just because there's a lot of examples. I might verbally say them, but I'm not going to write them all down. Okay. So let's look at the first one. The first one says f of 13. The first thing I need you to realize is that that 13 is where the x would be. So that 13 is my input or my x. And they're asking what matches up with that 13 of x. Well, when it's 13, it matches up with the number 80. So I can say that f of 13 equals 80, which would be my y value. Remember, let me go ahead and highlight the 13. Remember that my 13 was my input, which represented the age. And the 80 represented the amount of followers. So if I wanted to make a sentence, I would write something like, at age 13, this person had 80 followers. All right, let's take a look at letter B. Again, I'm going to realize that that 17 is where the x would normally be. So that means 17 is my input or my x value. On my table, the 17 would be right here. And what does that match up with? Well, the 17 matches up with 200. So I know f of 17 is equal to 200. What does that mean? That means at age 17, this person had 200 followers. Okay, similarly, when I do at letter C, I see that my x or my input, the thing inside the parentheses is 14. That makes this my x. I'm going to highlight the 14 on the table. That's here. What does that 14 match up with? It matches up with the 110. So I get to write that f of 14 equals 110. And if I were to write a sentence, it would be at age 14, this person has 110 followers. I'm not going to do that just in the interest of time to try to make this video a little bit shorter. All right, let's take a look at letter D. Letter D is a little bit different. This time they do not give you the number inside the parentheses. They give you the number on the outside. That means this 170 is actually my y value or my output. This is my y. So my one, since it's my y, I'm going to go ahead and highlight it in a different color. I'm going to highlight this in pink. And it's this number right here. What does the 170 match up with? The 170 matches up with the number 16. So when my y is 170, my x must be 16. And now that I know that information, now I can write my sentence. You still start with your inputs, which in this case is going to be 16. So my sentence is going to look like at age 16, this person had 170 followers. Similarly, when I look at letter E, I notice that the 40 is on the outside, which means it must be a y value. So it's got to be the second part of this table right here. What does that 40 match up with? Well, the 40 matches up with the 12. That means when my y value is 40, my x value must be 12. And if I were to write a sentence, it would say at age 12, this person had 40 followers. And again, in the interest of time, I'm just going to go ahead and speed run this last one. The 135 is on the outside, making it a y value. When I look at my table, the 135 of y value is here. That must match up with an x value of 15. So this must mean that x was 15. And if I were to write a sentence, it would say something like, at age 15, this person had 135 followers. Okay, so that takes care of the first example. Let's scroll down to the second one. The second one is very similar. It's functions as tables again. This time they tell me that the function h of a represents the average height of boys that are a years old. So here, my inputs or my x values are the ages. And what pops out is the number of inches in height that they are at that particular age. So the directions say use the table to evaluate the function at each value. Explain what each means in terms of the problem. Again, I'll do the first two, but after that, I'm not going to write the sentence full on. I think you'll have a good idea of what this is. More importantly, though, I do need to figure out first that 17. What does that 17 represent? I'm sorry, the 7. What does that 7 represent? Is that the inside the function or outside? It's inside, which makes it my x value. So this is saying when x is 7, here is x is 7 on my table. 7 what? In this case, it's 7 years. And what does that 7 years match up with? In this case, the 7 years matches up with 49. So I know h of 7 equals 49. 49 what? Well, remember that they said that the numbers on the right-hand side represented the average height in inches. So in this case, it would be 49 inches. By the way, I don't know if you know this, but it's good to know. If you're going to shorthand, like, for example, my height is 5 foot 9 inches. You can write 5 feet like this, 5 with an apostrophe, that's 5 feet. And then 9 inches is a double apostrophe. So that says 5 feet 9 inches. So if I want to write 49 inches and I want to write it in shorthand, I just write like, 49 inches like that. All right, the next one is a little bit confusing because they said that h is 1.5. Okay, well, I know that 1.5 must be the number of years because that's my input. I look at my table for 1.5 and I don't see it. But we got to be kind of creative because I know that 1 would mean 1 year, and 1 year is the same thing as 12 months. 1.5 years would be 12 months and then 6 more months on top of that to make half a year. That would mean it's 18 months. So this 18 months is actually what they're talking about right there because it's 1.5 years. So what does that match up with? It matches up with the 45 height in inches on the right-hand side. So I'm going to go ahead and write h of 1.5 equals 34 inches. I just realized that I did not write the sentence for the last one, so let me go ahead and do that right now. What should my sentence be for letter A? It should say something along the lines of, at age 7, the height, the boy's height, was 49 inches. And for letter B, I don't know why I did that, let's try that again, at age, I guess we can go 18 months, right? That makes a little bit more sense. At age 18 months, the boy's height was 34 inches. All right, let's try to speed run this. I know that 11 on the inside is the number of years. 11 years is right here. That 11 years matches up with the 57 inches, so I know h of 11 equals 57 inches. What would the sentence sound like? It would sound like at 11 years, the boy's height was 57 inches. And for letter D, same thing, that 12.5 is on the inside. That makes it my x value. Except I don't have a 12.5, so I'm gonna have to, I think it would be better if we guessed. Like 12, between 12 and 13 is where 12.5 would be. So it should be somewhere between 59 and 61. So I'm going to guess it's going to be 60. And I'm going to guess by saying I think this is going to be approximately 60 inches. And again, the sentence there would be at a height, I'm sorry, at the age of 12.5 years, the boy's height was approximately 60 inches. All right, let's take a look at number 2 and see how those look like. It says calculate the value of a that makes each equation true. Explain what it means in terms of the problem. H of a equals 61. This time that 61 is on the outside, which means it is not an x. This is actually a y value or an output. Since this is a y value of 61, I'm going to go ahead and highlight that 61. And that 61 matches with 13 years. So in order to get that 13 years, my x value, now I say x value, but really it's not an x value. It's an a value. I mean, it's the same thing, right? But they're using the letters a's, and so we should really technically use the letters that they use. Just know it's your input, right? The one that's going in. Your a value in this case would be 13 years. What would that sentence look like? It would say something like, at age 13, the boy's height was 61 inches. For the next one, it's 36. And again, that's on the outside. That makes this a y value. I say y value, but it looks like they're using h instead of y. Same difference though. You just need to know, like, oh, it's an output. It's what's popping out. Okay. And for 36, let me go ahead and highlight the 36. 36 inches is right here. What does that match up with? Well, in this case, it matches up with them being 2 years old. So their A value must have been 2. So we are going to say, as far as our sentence is concerned, at age 2, the boy's height was 36 inches. All right, speed run. My 53 is my output. 53 is right here. 53 matches up with 9 years. So my A would be 9. What would the sentence sound like? It would sound like at age 9, the boy's height was 53 inches. And for the last one, again, this is my Y value. Y value of 45, I really don't have one, so it's going to be somewhere between 44 and 47, which means my answer is going to be somewhere between 5 and 6. I can call it around 5.5. Right now we're just kind of guesstimating. So I'm going to say A would be approximately 5.5. And the sentence would read, at age 5.5 years, the boy's height was approximately 45 inches. Okay, so that takes care of problem number 2 and how to interpret those problems. The ones that's been giving students problems have been problem number 3, which is functions as graphs. Here they have, just looking at the table, it says Gulliver's Travels, making me struggle with that word. On the bottom, it says your x's, which usually go here, are actually t's. So if I say x, really what I mean is t. You should be using the word t, okay? My t's are down here, which again are usually your inputs or your x's, and that is represented in hours. My y's, they change the y's into letter d's, so we should be using letter d's, and that distance stands for the number of miles. So it says the function d of t represents Gulliver's distance from home after t hours. Man, that word Gulliver is really doing a number on me right now. Use the graph to evaluate the function at each value. Explain what each means in terms of the problem. So first things first, d of 2. I notice that 2 is inside the parentheses. That means that 2 is an x value normally, right? In this case, we're going to say it's a t value. So this is my t, which again is really your x. but it's your t-value. Here's your t-value, and I want it at 2. So from 2, I need to go up, 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 or down, 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 down. It just depends on your graph, but this is all going to be going up, 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 up until I hit the graph. I hit it right here. When did I hit it? I hit it at 4. So d of 2 must equal 4. As far as what does this mean? Remember, 2 was the time. It took 2 hours. At 2 hours, that 4 was a distance from home. He is 4 miles away from home. So I'm going to say at 2 hours, he was 4 miles away from home. And that takes care of letter A. Let's take a look at letter B. Letter B, again, it is on the inside of the function. Inside the function, I have a 5. That makes it your x, but it's not an x this time. This time it's a t. Your t is 5. Let's take a look at when t is 5. Here are your t's. T is 5 right here. I'm going to go up, 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 up until I hit the graph. And it looks like it hits at 11. So I know that d of 5 equals 11. What does that mean? That means at 5 hours, he was 11 miles away from home. All right, let's take a look at d of 2.9. I know 2.9 is on the inside. That makes it a t value. Your t's are right here. And I want the t of 2.9, which would be somewhere around here. I'm going to go up, 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 up until I hit the graph. And it looks like it's hitting exactly at 4. So I know that d of 2.9 equals 4. Again, as a sentence, you would say at 2.9 hours, Gulliver was 4 miles away from home. And the last one, d of 10. D of 10, 10 is a t value. So on my t's, I'm going to look at the value of 10. And here, the y value or the d value is 0. It does not go up at all. So d of 10 equals 0. There's a couple of different ways you can say this. You can say at 10 hours, he was 0 miles away from home. Or you can say if he's 0 miles away from home, that means he's home, right? So at 10 hours, he made it back home. You can use that verbiage as well. Okay, these next ones are going to be a little bit more complicated because it's always more complicated going a little bit backwards. So calculate the value of t that makes each equation true. Explain what each means in terms of the problem. So this time that 2 is on the outside. That means that 2 is not an x, it's actually a y. Remember that y in this case would be your d, right? The distance, because we're not dealing with x's and y's, we're dealing with t's and d's. But 2 is your distance, and we're going to see what t value makes my y value or my distance equal to 2. So d is 2. Here are the d values, and I want to go up to 2. I see the 2 right here. I'm going to go left and right this time until I hit the graph. So I'm going to go right, 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 right. And I know what happens at 1. So most students would write, oh, okay, t equals 1. Unfortunately, that's not entirely correct because let's take a look again. Remember, I said I wanted a distance of 2. I started here, and you said, yep, I agree with that, except if I keep going, there's another spot where that distance was 2 miles away, and that happens right around 9.5. So we're going to say t equals 1 or t equals 9.5. Both of those has a distance of 2 miles. You need to include both. As far as the sentence is concerned, we're going to say at 1 hour and at 9.5 hours, the distance was 2 miles. This is what makes going backwards a little bit tougher is a lot of times you're going to get more than one answer. Let's take a look at letter B. Letter B says d of t equals 5. That 5 is on the outside. That makes it a y value, but again, our y values are really d's. So when my distance is 5, sorry, that was a horrible d. Let's try that again. When my distance is 5, here are my distances, and I want my distance to be 5, which is right here. I'm going to go right on the graph until it hits. It hits right here perfectly at 4. But again, you got to keep going just to make sure. And look at that, it hits again. And this time it hits at 8.5. So at 4 and at 8.5. T equals 4, or T equals, what was it, 8.5? As far as the sentence is concerned, I would say at 4 hours and at 8.5 hours, the distance was 5 miles. All right, we're going to try to speed run the next ones. D of t equals 4. Let's see. D of t equals 4. I know that that 4 is on the outside. That makes it a d. T equals 4 is right here. When does it equal 4? Well, it happens at 2. It happens at 3. And it happens like at 8.7. So t equals 2, 3, and 8.7. And the sentence would say at t equal at 2 hours, 3 hours, and at 8.7 hours, the distance was 4 miles away. And then the last one, when does d of t equal 0? Again, 0 is your distance. If I want the distance to be 0, that means here. That happens right away. And it also happens at 10 hours. So in this case, t is equal to 0. Let me do this in purple so it stands out a little bit. T equals 0 and t equals 10. All right, those are all the notes for today. If you have any questions, feel free to ask.